It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
2019 is now dragon.
We are a massive 2 days in. Apologies for not being here last week, but as most of you are fully aware, anybody who does fantasy football in week 17 is a loser. Therefore, we decided not to do a show because we were eating copious amounts of turkey, or I was, because I still have a functioning oven in my house.
Yeah, low blow. And
How's the salad? How was the salad?
I have warned you. You're already on thin ice today. So
I am, aren't I?
The thinnest of thin ice.
Thinnest of thin ice. We won't talk about Neil's soccer team, Sheffield Wednesday, hiring a former Sheffield United manager and all-round fathead, broken nose. See you next Tuesday. We'll skip over that because I'm sure Neil wants to focus on more exciting sport where his teams are involved, and that's the NFL, obviously. This week, it's Wildcard weekend, which some would say is the second best weekend of the year. It does have a tendency to have a couple of dud games. However, Neil, it looks like we've done all right this year and we might not have any.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's the Houston Texans. This is their fifth season in the playoffs, and it is the fifth time that they'll be the first game that kicks off on a Saturday.
For those who listen to around the NFL, it looks like West of us is now becoming Texavus.
Texavus.
So, yeah, fantastic. So this week, we're going to plug into the Mainz first of all to talk about Black Monday, as it was. Sackings rife across the NFL as always. We're going to look at the best jobs and the worst jobs in our opinions. I think Neil's got the opinions of some of our listeners as well. Then Neil is going to highlight you a fantasy darling and a fantasy loser of the year. I am going to give you my daily DraftKings team of the week for the wildcard weekend, and then we're going to give you a brief plugged into the Mainz part 2. That's 2 for those who don't speak Spanish. Around what the teams need to do in wildcard weekend to win, or what they need to avoid to also head to the next part of the season. So let's get this thing started, Neil. Let's plug into the Mainz part 1. Coaching Carousel, everybody's favourite time of year. Not. Lots of speculation, but first of all, lots of firings. Those firings came in Arizona, in Cincinnati. We already had one in Cleveland. The Denver Broncos, Green Bay Packers already happened, obviously. We had the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. All fired on Sunday or Monday. Neil, you believe more may follow, but at the moment they're the ones that we've got highlighted so far as absolutely getting done.
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, they're the ones that are already out, but as we go into 2019, I think these coaches, I think there would have been some justification for firing some of them this year, but certainly I think that they can't afford any more slip-ups in 2019. These are the likes of John Harbaugh, who has been offered an extension but has not signed it. So it's a question of, is he playing the Joe Flacco game himself and trying to price himself out? Because I believe his brother maybe has similar strategies in the past. Mike Tomlin is basically looks to be a bit like Grand Admiral Dönitz in the last days of the Third Reich. He's presiding over an absolute shambles. Then we've got these people. These people, I say, if they hadn't been fired, I wouldn't have been surprised. Doug Marrone, Jason Garrett, playoffs, don't care, horrible, terrible coach. Jay Gruden, Pat Shermer, Mike Zimmer, Matt Patricia, Ron Rivera, Dan Quinn, Kyle Shanahan, and Sean McDermott. The last two, I think they're safe for now, but I don't think they can afford to be terrible again next year. So, you look at that. So there's 8 vacancies. There's another 12 teams there that I think, if they'd fired them now, wouldn't have been a shock. They could fire next year. That means there's 12 teams whose coach, I think, is pretty safe. That's not very many.
It's not, and it shows that, I guess, it's maybe not that coaches are worse, it's that people are more informed, more aware of what's going on. The basic constant spotlight, I guess. Years and years ago, if we go back, say, to the Dallas Cowboys under Jimmy Johnson, the kind of stuff that is happening in Pittsburgh right now was a Tuesday in Dallas at that point. However, they kept on winning, so no one cared. But also, it wasn't, even though the spotlight's massive in Dallas and always has been, it wasn't as massive, I guess. So it's one of those things. So for me, Neil, on the 8 that are available right now, give me your best job.
Well, my best job would be the Green Bay Packers. Because, let's be honest, they still have Aaron Rodgers, one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time. Friend Andrew Brandt, former Green Bay vice president of player finance.
Player
football.
Yeah.
He said the following in SI this week: working for the Packers was working for a public trust with limited, if any, interference. There is no owner to demand a certain player be drafted or played, to divert resources away from the team, to meddle or steal the spotlight, to create division or have employees call him Mister. I felt the magnitude of representing the vast Packer nation, but was not awed by it. Coaches and front office personnel with the Packers can focus on football without distractions or drama from above. Now, as I say, Packers are unique in American sport because they don't have the owner structure. So pretty much, as we've seen, their coaches left to get on with it, and they're fairly patient. They don't make snap judgments. They don't fire willy-nilly. Aaron Nagler, however, where I did say that Aaron Rodgers would be one of the plus points for taking the job, Aaron Nagler seemed to suggest that one of the cons for taking the job would be Aaron Rodgers. And his exact quote was, "Come tie your professional viability to an aging quarterback who will petulantly throw you under the bus after a victory if he doesn't approve of the game plan, while failing to acknowledge his own shortcomings in the offensive malaise." Packers pitch to potential head coaches feel strong. I think it's still the Green Bay Packers. You've still got Aaron Rodgers. As long as you have a modicum of football sense and work to make sure that Aaron Rodgers is part of the game plan and you are playing to his strengths, then it's still an attractive job. Salary cap,
just on the Packers, Neil, while Aaron Nagler's probably right, to be honest, there's not many people who know the Green Bay Packers better than Aaron, so that's fair enough. However, didn't Mike McCarthy take a job in almost identical circumstances? It just so happens that the quarterback wasn't Aaron Rodgers, but his name was Brett Favre, and actually Brett Favre was worse and more aging.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. I say you look at other things. I say you've got a few decent pieces on defense. They've got 2 first-round draft picks, so obviously that's going to be, they're going to be able to hopefully use them. Salary cap-wise, they have about 32 million in salary cap space. That's after you take out their rookie salaries, as it were. Because they do actually have 42 million, but they're going to lose 10 million of that to the rookie pool, assuming they sign all their draft picks when they use them. They've got 48 players under contract at the moment for next season. Obviously, that needs to go to 53. So they can make some moves, but we know that in the past they haven't been big in free agency. So some coach is going to have to come in and accept that. But it's still Green Bay. It's the Green Bay coach. I'm pretty certain his name is attached to winning the Super Bowl. So it's still the most glamorous job to get. And at the moment, it's still one of the most desirable, if not the most desirable of this 8.
I think if I take my best job, Neil, there's a theme. The 3 best jobs are jobs where you have a quarterback on a low salary who you drafted in the first round and you have tied down for 4 to 5 years. So it goes Browns, Jets, and Cardinals, right? They're the best jobs based on the fact that the 6 highest paid quarterbacks in terms of annual salary are not in the playoffs. That's not a coincidence, I don't think, necessarily, because as soon as you pay your quarterback, you then struggle to fill the rest of your roster out, although that may change with salary cap. Based on that, and based on what we've seen this year, and based on the fact that the roster around him, it's absolutely Baker Mayfield, so therefore you go for the Cleveland Browns. Insanity if we were here 12 months ago saying that exact same situation. However, 7-8-1, which is damn
7-8-1, yeah.
which is damn near raising the Titanic. Baker Mayfield breaks the rookie record for touchdowns. Let's be honest, Neil, I'm biased here. Some people may not like the antics. I want to buy his shirt and get a tattoo of his name on my arm. He is talented. They also have a number of other talented players: Chubb, Callaway, Garrett, Ward, who you can build around, all also under rookie scales, which allows you to do other things. So in the best job, I would go for the Cleveland Browns. However, in the same situation where you thought the issue with the Packers is the quarterback, quote unquote, because, he may be a diva, and the good thing is the ownership situation, the opposite of that would be the Cleveland Browns, as Jimmy Haslam has shown hasn't shown that he's able to, nous or able to stay out the way. The other issue there becomes is that his best mate is Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning may think, rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, that Adam Gase is a good coach.
Yeah, that would be the problem, as the evidence would show us that Adam Gase is not an offensive genius. Because if he was, Miami Dolphins' job would be a lot more attractive right now. And the fact that it isn't, I think, is partly Gase has to hold his hand up and take the blame for that. The Browns will be a wonderful job because, as you say, you've got the building blocks, you've got quality playmakers on defense and on offense. You've got a ton of salary cap space. After they sign their rookies, they've got $76 million, so they can go out and augment this roster with a few more playmakers. They do need one other wide receiver. It's still a bit who, Jarvis Landry. I think my views are well known. Other than that, they can't go into next season with their leading wide receivers being Bashard Perryman and Antonio Callaway. Can't do it. But the rest of the building blocks in place. The worst thing that could happen would be, say, a coach like Adam Gase or Mike McCarthy. Don't want them anywhere near Baker Mayfield.
But it's almost like the Cardinals were supposedly offered Mike McCarthy, who I have had issues with in the past, but understand why you would want him as the coach. But they wanted him as like impresario. Like, when has he ever proven that he's good at anything other than coach? Like, why would you then? He's actually, burnt his bridges as a coach and probably needs to rebuild that reputation. But instead of you thinking that, you want to give him make him head of personnel as well.
Well, when you've drafted as poorly as the Arizona Cardinals, anything's better.
Yeah,
they took Patrick Peterson in 2011 in the first round. Since then, these are their first round picks. Michael Floyd burnt out, flamed out very quickly. Jonathan Cooper never did anything. Deion Buchanan tried to trade him this year, so ended up benching him. DJ Humphries, bust. Robert Nkemdiche, bust. Hassan Reddick, contributor. And Josh Rosen, jury out. So Mike McCarthy obviously is not the only coach who's turned down an interview as well. Eric Bieniemy, I believe is how you pronounce it, the Chiefs OC, he's also turned them down. So the coaching community is telling us which of these vacancies is the least desirable. I disagree, but they don't seem to like it very much.
Who do you think is the worst job done?
The Dolphins. I don't know why any coach would want any part of that. Who's running? Who is the general manager? I don't care who's the title. Who is actually picking the players? They do this all the time. They move the deck chairs in the Titanic, but they don't make a clean sweep. Get rid of them all. Bring in a proper general manager. Tie him to the coach, and then let them work out this roster. Because ultimately, head coaches can come in and say, "Well, I'm not. Who's picking the players? Who do I blame?" And say again, we talk about talent poor. Ryan Tannehill, whoever was calling the shots and gave him a new contract before the season, congratulations. That was the most ridiculous thing you could have done, because now it's going to cost you $13 million for him to go away. But you look on there, say, Adam Gase, offensive guru, they were 26th in points, 31st in yards. Their leading rusher was Frank Gore. Their leading receiver was Danny Amendola. Their best defensive player is Kiko Alonso, who's scum and should be out of the league. The best pass rusher is Cameron Wake. He got 6 sacks. He's 36 years old. They don't have an awful lot of cap space. Well, yeah, actually, oh God, if you take away the rookie calculation, they've got $6 million in cap space, and they're going to have to cut Ryan Tannehill. So this roster is going to have to get gutted. I don't know why anyone would want to go there. Well, I know why anyone would go there. It's a head coaching job in the NFL. There's only 32 of them, but it'd be way down my list.
That's not the reason. The reason is it's Miami. Like, you don't necessarily you go there for the sunshine, right? Like on the 31st of December, it was like 84 degrees. That's why you're there, and that's why you don't go to places like Green Bay, because maybe you don't like the cold. I have 2 options for this, Neil. The obvious one, is the Bengals, right? Like, go back and listen to Chris Westling the first time he was on with us discussing the Bengals and the disgrace that they were. We all laugh at Marvin Lewis, and we have done in the past, but we should never underestimate that he actually turned them into a professional organisation with a scouting department, and they actually went to the playoffs. Okay, they didn't win playoff games, but that was it. Neil, you got into an interesting debate with at UK Denver Broncos this week. I'm gonna go. Ian Rappaport said the Broncos had fired Vance Joseph two seasons without a viable quarterback and now unemployed. You retweeted said quote with a comment: "The GM, of course, will remain in place." The Denver Broncos UK. At UK Denver Broncos replied to you emphatically twice. The GM that built the best offense ever that didn't win a Super Bowl, so then built arguably the greatest defense ever and did win the Super Bowl, sounds about right. Attempts at drafting quarterback of the future: A. Osweiler, successful in Denver, helped us win a Super Bowl, then chose to leave. Then Lynch, abject failure. It's not that horrendous. I assume he means drafting the quarterbacks. Now, whether I agree or disagree with at UK Denver Broncos, don't know him or her. Sure, fantastic person, obviously tremendously knowledgeable about the Denver Broncos, know more about it than me. I would question 2 of these statements. Best offense ever, built it. Technically just signed Peyton Manning, but anyway, we're getting into semantics. Best defense ever? No, it's very good. It was excellent. It absolutely won them a Super Bowl. That is factually accurate. However, best defense ever? No, it wasn't. But whatever. I'm not 100% sure I would call Osweiler successful in Denver, but okay. And we agree on Lynch being an abject failure. What we can't deny is that when you put someone like John Elway in charge of a franchise, you have a major problem. As someone who supports, in soccer, shall we say, Liverpool Football Club, people like Kenny Dalglish, or eventually I would say Steven Gerrard, going to cause you major issues if they are not successful, because you don't want to fire them, because they are your franchise and have been forever. John Elway is top 4-5 quarterbacks ever in the history of the NFL, and won 2 Super Bowls with the Denver Broncos, and went to 5. That was Kelly went to 5. Apologies. The issue becomes that regardless of whether he does a good job or a bad job, fans will not want to see him fired because it looks bad on the franchise. I completely understand that. And that is why I would absolutely not want to be the Broncos head coach. Because it will always be your fault. And that's just the way of the world. Whether you agree or disagree on it is fine. But as a head coach, you will always be second fiddle to someone like John Elway. Yeah.
Because he came out today and said, my reputation does not shield me from criticism. Yes, it does. Of course it does.
It's naive. It's naive. Now, I understand why John would say that, because he's got to say that, but it's naive to suggest that that's the case.
And plus, as well, aside from this draft class, so the 2018 one, where they got Bradley Chubb, They got all the young wide receivers. Yeah, they got Philip Lindsay undrafted. How that happened, I don't know. But he's been a terrible drafter. And it's not just a quarterback. The last Pro Bowler they drafted was Von Miller. That was 2011. So, and I say, as we said, and so what if he did build these great teams? That was 4 years ago.
Yeah,
so
you can't,
job for life.
You can't rest on laurels based on those kinds of situations. At that point, I don't want to go into some kind of Patriots debate, right? But at that point, you're in a position of strength. So therefore, the Patriots have somehow managed to do this for 15, 20 years. So it's not like it's not possible. But you can't drop off as dramatically as having back-to-back losing seasons for the first time since like the 1970s or something outrageous. So that's a big issue for Denver.
Yeah.
Neil, that's it on the coaching tree. At the moment, none of these are filled. Lots of interviews, lots of the same old names, although some new ones, which I'm heartened to see, because I sometimes think there's no point in just rinsing and repeating someone and hoping they're better in your job than they were in the other one. It doesn't happen like that very often.
No.
So I'm going to quickly go on to fantasy now, bread and butter, so to speak. And Neil is going to give you his fancy darling and loser of the year. My understanding, Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, his darling is someone who snuck under the radar at the start of the year but got you some serious points throughout the year, and a loser is a high first round draft pick who absolutely stunk. I would assume that in the loser, if he's not on my roster, I will be completely and utterly stunned. But let's focus on the good first, and let's go with Neil's fancy darling of the year.
Hello, darling.
Well, I have three because there is an obvious one. According to my fancy league ADP, the 15th quarterback drafted on average in leagues this season in August was Patrick Mahomes. So I'll just, the quarterbacks who were taken before him, so the 12 top quarterbacks: Rodgers, Watson, Brady, Wilson, Newton, Breeze, Wentz, Cousins, Luck, Stafford, Rivers, Roethlisberger. Most of them were serviceable. Rodgers was quarterback 6, Watson 4, Wilson 9, Breeze 8, Luck 5, Rivers 11, Roethlisberger 3. But Patrick Mahomes was the 15th quarterback being drafted.
It's 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, just the numbers as well that helped him propel him to where he was. He had 101 pass attempts in the red zone, so you got plenty of volume there. You knew he was going to throw touchdowns. He had 88 deep ball pass attempts. And also as well, he wasn't a liability with his feet. He was 10th in rush attempts per game and 10th in rushing yards per game for quarterback. So overall, if you waited and got Patrick Mahomes, you did quite well. You won't be able to next year, but I digress. The next one, he was, I love this, where is it? He was the 43rd running back drafted. Obviously, there were reasons why he went 43rd, and that's James Conner. Now, he obviously got injured, he fell off, but for the 12 games he played, he had at least 13 rush attempts in 9 of them. He had at least 4 targets in 11 of them. He had multiple red zone carries in 10 of them, and he was a running back 24 or above in 10 of the 12 games. It's just unfortunate that he broke down as the season went on. But if you took him as a handcuff, which I'm not big on handcuffs myself, but if you waited and took him because you had Le'Veon Bell, you did okay.
But if you had Le'Veon Bell and didn't take him, you probably didn't make the playoffs.
Correct.
Me.
And the final one, it is important, to stress how good he was, considering how he was viewed in his previous stop. That's Eric Ebron, who was the tight end 4. He was the 12th tight end drafted, so he didn't do too badly. But when you consider how much of a dumpster fire the difference between the top of the tight end and the bottom is, he had an 18.8% hog rate, which was targets when on the field. That was the most of all tight ends. He had 15 end zone targets, which was the most among tight ends, and he had 494 air yards, which was fourth among tight ends. Jack Doyle was injured. Perfect situation. Eric Ebron came in, established a rapport with Andrew Luck, and he cashed in.
Neil, let's get straight to it. Who was terrible this year in the Fantasy Loser of the Year?
The obvious one would be Le'Veon Bell, but I'm not going to go him because it went beyond fantasy. The biggest fantasy loser for me, based on where he was drafted, was Leonard Fournette. He was the 7th running back taken in drafts. He finished as the running back 40. Now, in terms of fantasy points per game, he was actually 12th, but he only played 8 games. That's part of the problem. If he's not on the field, he's not helping you. He averaged 3.3 yards per carry. He had 3 runs of 15 yards or more all season. He had 0.76 fantasy points per opportunity, which is reception, carry. Between weeks 10 and 12, he was running back... weeks 10 and 12, he was running back 7, 7 and 6. But in the crucial weeks 14, 15 and 16, he was running back 43, 32 and 14. He had a huge... when he was on the field, he got all the touches. But he was terrible. The Jaguars were terrible, obviously. They couldn't just sit on him and feed him all the time. Their running game wasn't very good. They brought in Andrew Norwell to help him with the ground game. He wasn't very good. Their quarterback play was terrible. Leonard Fournette has now, it seems, worn out his welcome ridiculously quickly in Jacksonville. He'll be somewhere else, but he won't be a fantasy factor again, I don't think, because he's just not that good. Especially when you consider you took him 4th overall, when you had question marks about your quarterback, when you could have taken Patrick Mahomes. Well, you know, that could have gone better.
I just look and think, Saquon Barkley is amazing. Christian McCaffrey is amazing. However, I always seem to struggle to think that it's not sensible to draft a running back that high, especially when you've got Philip Lindsay.
Well, and also as well, what you have to remember about Barkley, McCaffrey, Gurley, even Elliott to an extent, they catch the damn ball.
Yeah, and Fournette doesn't do that.
But we didn't. Oh, actually,
Cool, right. So after Neil's fancy loser, doesn't get much bigger. Let's do some DraftKings Team of the Week.
Mainz and Dutts. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
So, it's Wildcard weekend, and I've decided to pick a DFS Team of the Week. Neil hasn't, because he's a loser, and I told him not to. So, Neil, we're going to quickly go through my team before we then get on to how we think the teams are going to mesh up. So, usual fare, DraftKings, 50,000. Quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a defense and special teams. My quarterback this week, 5,800. Lamar Jackson, youngest ever quarterback in the playoffs. Didn't know that. If you watched him against the Browns on the ground, you think, that's pretty. And I'll have myself some of those rushing yards. Running back 1 is Marlon Mack, Indianapolis at Houston. Heavily involved in the offense. Good to see. Weirdly, it always seems like even when they even had Edgerrin James, it always felt like they needed to run more in Indianapolis. Marlon Mack's done that recently. I assume it continues. He is $6,000. Running back
Ryan
2.
Kelly, Ryan Kelly looks like he will play.
Well,
Max splits with and without Kelly are quite startling.
Yeah, Kelly's really good. Running back 2, no offense, Neil, Tariq Cohen. Philadelphia at the Bears. Fearful for the Bears, really am. Just all the hallmarks of a loss. It just got loss written all over it. There's absolutely no logical reason why they should lose. Therefore, they shall.
There's one reason why they should lose.
Well, I'm sure we'll get onto that momentarily.
Big Dick Nick.
Big Dick Nick. Looking forward to the who should we trade Carson Wentz to stories coming out of Philadelphia in the next couple of days.
Just a quick spoiler: don't bring that weak ass shit on this show. I'm not entertaining it.
Okay. Tariq Cohen. I don't think they'll be able to run much, but he will catch a lot of balls. He's 5,400. I've got two LA Chargers wide receivers now, back to back. Insanity, I know. Looked at it before. The wide receiver market is not great. I've gone for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Keenan Allen is 6,900. Mike Williams 4,700. Mike Williams will score a touchdown. Keenan Allen will get any of the throws that Phil Rivers sends. I like Baltimore, and there's two logical ways to think about this, people. Okay, logical way one is the better team you want to win, then you'd probably want the Chargers to win. But if, for whatever reason, you have a tendency to not like the New England Patriots, you may have that in your life. That's fine. That's your remit. You want Indianapolis to win, firstly, and then you want Baltimore to win. Because absolutely New England Patriots want no part of the Baltimore Ravens. But if Houston win, then you may as well let the Chargers win, because then you get Chargers against Chiefs. And that'll be cool. Wide receiver 3 is Allen Robinson. Second, Philadelphia stink on the secondary. I don't care if they allowed, I don't know, how many yards did you allow against Washington? Like 2? I don't know. 36?
4. Yeah.
Something outrageous.
Fletcher Cox won Defensive Player of the Week after playing 32 snaps.
Just, like, you had to watch that, I did not. So I didn't. And I know we talked about the Bengals before, but like we need to get Chris back on the show, because honestly Washington must be getting close to me being allowed to divorce them. Do you know what I mean? I've got to be getting close right now, because it's an absolute joke.
It was pathetic. It was, you'd say, boys against men. No, this was men against children, not just boys.
Do you know what though, Neil? Like the on the field stuff can kind of almost be explained away by just the absolutely horrendous off the field situation, which is only going to get worse. Tight end, Neil mentioned before in his fancy darling, it's Eric Ebron, 5,200. Flex is Chris Carson of the Seattle Seahawks. He's 6,800. The 5th most rush yards this season, which surprised me. And defense and special teams is the Chicago Bears. Neil, you're welcome for this Philadelphia victory. Regardless of whether the Eagles win or not, the Bears will do something on defense, because that's their remit, I guess. So Lamar Jackson,
some bloke called Mac.
I hear he's good. Lamar Jackson, Marlon Mack, Tariq Cohen, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Allen Robinson, Eric Ebron, Chris Carson, and the Bears. I'm at Mainz 7. That team will be available. If you wish to challenge me, please do so. So Neil, we're going to go back to plugged into the Mainz for our wildcard picks. I want one thing each team has to do to win, and one thing which each team must avoid. First game on the slate, Saturday night, our time, is Colts at Texans on a website, a betting website where you have the same number of days in the year. The Texans were favoured by 1. What do the Colts have to do to win the game, Dutton?
What the Colts have to do is they need to obviously protect Andrew Luck. They need to keep J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney off him. Jadeveon Clowney is, to be fair, he's a pretty good bet to give you back in penalty yards any yards he takes off you in sacks. You don't want to become one-dimensional against the Texans. They're going to have to stay running the ball occasionally, but they're so banged up in the secondary. I think even if they did decide, look, we're just going to go pass heavy, then I think it would favour the Colts. But they need to keep Luck upright. So if that means getting the ball out quickly, that's what they have to do.
For me, the Colts have to run the ball. Because if they run the ball, then that allows that kind of space that Neil mentioned for Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton. So if they're able to establish that run, absolutely they will be fine. What do they have to avoid doing, Neil, to win the game?
Well, they can't turn the ball over. And also they can't allow Deshaun Watson to run on them. Because Deshaun Watson
that's exactly what I said, Neil. You've got to stop Watson getting loose. He's got to be contained, and that if you keep him contained, then you're in with a really good chance of winning the game.
Two totally different quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson, who are both, being used as runners more by their teams. But I think the Texans are putting Deshaun Watson in a lot more harm's way than the Ravens are with Jackson. Just by the plays they are calling.
I'm not 100% sure. Like when Watson runs, it's supposed to be a run though. When Jackson runs, it's supposed to be a run. Do you know what I mean? That it's not supposed. That I always see that is him running for his life almost. If you know what I mean. So I don't know. Neil, what do the Texans have to do to win?
Texans have to try and keep the score down, because ideally they don't want to get into a shootout with Andrew Luck, because aside from Nick Foles, the quarterback who had the most success against the Texans this season was Andrew Luck. He can pick them apart at will if he wants. They really cannot afford that, because they don't have the horses. They've got DeAndre Hopkins, and that's it. So even if DeAndre Hopkins all-world talent, if he's all you've got to worry about, you can slow him down. They want to play ball control. They want to lean on the run game. Use Deshaun Watson in the run game as well. They do not want to be trying to win this game 35-34.
For me, the Texans have got to keep Watson upright. Been sacked far too many times in his whole career, but especially this season. Something outrageous, like 62 times or something unbelievable.
No playoff quarterback has been sacked more in the Super Bowl era than Deshaun Watson has this season.
So
they're not all on him, but an awful lot are.
Yeah, but regardless of whether they're on him or not, they're on the offense. Do you know what I mean? And they need to keep him standing. So that needs to be gone as quickly as possible. What do the Texans need to avoid doing, Neil?
That they need to avoid. They need to avoid Watson being sacked. They need to. He can't be killing drives by getting sacked. Yeah, he's he's a threat. If you're going to try and play man coverage on third down and it's short, he can run himself. But there are also the situations where he leaves himself open to sacks. Because if they lose him, I'm not saying just because he gets sacked he's going to get hurt. But if he was to get hurt, they're done. That game ends at that point. They can't afford it. They need same with what the Colts need to do. Keep Luck on his feet. It's what the Texans need to do. Probably even more so.
For me, they need to avoid stupid penalties. As you mentioned on Clowney, a lot of sacks, but a lot of false starts, defensive hold, whatever it is, and a lot of face masks. Do you know what I mean? That needs to be avoided, because he needs to get off the field on third down. If they do that, they probably win the game. Neil, Colts at Texans, who you got?
I've got the Colts because I'll take Andrew Luck and Frank Reich over Watson and Bill O'Brien.
I'm going to take the Colts as well. A tight game, I think, but I'm just going to favour the Colts. Saturday late Sunday morning UK time. It's Seahawks at Cowboys. Dallas at present on said betting website are favoured by 1. Seahawks, Neil, what do they have to do to win the game?
They basically have to stay true to themselves, which they're going to, because we've seen that they do not deviate from their script. They're going to run the ball, and they're going to rely on Russell Wilson to do something, because he always does. That statistic about Tyler Lockett, is allowing, when targeting Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson has 158.3 passer rating this season. It's ridiculous.
My brain can't even comprehend it. Mine is similar, Neil. I just think the Seahawks have to own time of possession. This is one of those games where both teams will want to own time of possession. If the Seahawks own time of possession, then they will win the game. What do they have to avoid doing or avoid?
It's pretty similar to what the Colts need to do. They need to account for Dak Prescott. I know he's not been a big runner, but he showed against the Giants, if he's allowed to scramble and move around a lot, he can still make plays. He takes a lot of sacks as well, but they need to account for him.
For me, they need to avoid that big Zeke game. They don't need 150, 160 yards from Ezekiel Elliott, because in this situation, that will probably mean that the Cowboys have owned time of possession, and at that point, I would expect Dallas to win. From the Dallas point of view, Neil, I'll go first. I think Dallas need to pass the ball. They need to be able to move the ball in the air to win the game. Now, I'm not saying they need to throw it 50 times, far from it. I'm just saying they need to consistently be able to move the ball through the air to get to be able to win the game. What's your key for the Cowboys?
It's similar to Seattle. They need to stay true to what they are, which means they lean on the ground game, but they do need to keep Amari Cooper engaged. They need to keep him part of the game, because as great as Seattle have been this season, and they have, this is still a defense that's been torn apart by Nick Mullins twice. Now, say what you like about Dak Prescott, I think he's slightly better than Nick Mullins. And Nick Mullins had no wide receiver of note. Amari Cooper's been sensational for the most part, although he's gone off a bit the last couple of weeks. Need to keep him involved. And also as well, the team seem to have settled on a tight end. Seahawks have been slightly weak against tight ends historically. If Blake Jarwin can get the type of space that he got last week, which he won't, they need. I agree with you. They need to pass the ball, but they need to be balanced. Can't just, if they abandon the run at any stage, they're done.
The Cowboys on defense need to avoid staying on the field too long. They have a talented defense now. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But they can't, no defense wants to be on the field for 38, 39 minutes of a 60-minute game. If they get off the field, especially on third downs, stop Wilson making those splash plays, I think the Cowboys got a real chance to win the game. Who do you think is going to win the game, Neil? Dallas or Seattle?
Seattle Seahawks. Because Dallas had their Super Bowl last week. That was ridiculous. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I don't know the mindset, and I don't understand the absolute hoot. The absolute hoot. And they pulled at the end of it to celebrate a game that basically means the Giants are going to get a draft pick. I don't understand it. That wasn't the playoffs, Jerry.
That's the bit I didn't understand. Say you want to play your starters, I kind of don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem when you play a division opponent and give them a better draft pick, though.
Yeah. If you're going to play your starters, play them. If you're not going to play them, don't play them. Don't put backup linemen in and leave your quarterback in. What the hell was that about?
Oh,
so this game isn't important enough for you to play Zeke, but you'll play Dak. I don't understand that.
No, I don't either. Moving to Sunday, Neil. Chargers at Ravens. Ravens favoured by 2.5. Again, I'll go first. Chargers. They need good Phil Rivers. No one wants any part of the Phil Rivers who played Baltimore in 2 weeks ago. That will not get anybody anywhere, and we'll have LA. Yes, that's right. I got it right. LA back in Los Angeles very, very fast. So if they get a good Phil Rivers game, the Chargers could be in business.
I think the Chargers need to hit them big plays. That's what's been missing the last few weeks. They've been quite pedestrian. Whether Melvin Gordon is back fit and healthy, get Keenan Allen back. Apparently Hunter Henry might be in. He's not going to play a full complement of snaps, don't worry. But they need big plays because Baltimore are not going to let them sustain drives. So they're going to need to hit on big plays because the Ravens take away drives from you because they play so slow. They have so many plays themselves, they don't give you any. They take away about a series and a half in terms of plays. So Baltimore are going to have to hit on the big plays.
They need to avoid, and what the Chargers need to do is avoid falling into them traps on runs. They need to not be the Cleveland Browns giving up 296 yards or whatever it was on rushing last week. You need a spy. You need someone to be able to understand what's going on. And if they avoid those traps and don't allow Jackson to run as much as he did last week, they're in with a chance. Ravens, for me, similar to Dallas, they've got to be able to throw the ball. They've got to at least make the Chargers play the pass. If they make the Chargers play the pass, that allows them to run as much as they want, which I think is something ridiculous. Like in the last 6 weeks, it's the third most. Like in the two ahead of it are both from the 1970s. So that's what they've got to do. They've got to be able to throw the ball to try and win the game.
Yeah, mine is the Chargers cannot turn the ball over. As stupid as it sounds, but I don't think this defense is so good. If you end drives by giving them the ball, you're not going to get another chance to put it right very quickly. Not going to happen. Cannot turn the ball over. The Ravens, they just need to keep keep doing what they're doing. Again, it sounds stupid, but these teams got to the playoffs for a reason. So keep them guessing. Is it going to be Lamar Jackson? Is it going to be Gus Edwards? Is it going to be Kenneth Dixon? Their big play outlet seems to be Mark Andrews, the tight end, rather than John Brown or Michael Crabtree. They have to watch for him. The Chargers, they need to account for him. So the play action and whatnot, they need to know where he is because he can move down the seam.
Last thing for me on the Baltimore game is, Neil, if the Ravens keep Rivers out of rhythm, they win the game. I think it's that simple. If Rivers gets into a rhythm, we know what he can do. But if he doesn't, he can be terrible. And I just see that happening. So I'm going to pick the Ravens here. I don't particularly want to. I'd like the Chargers to win, but I think the Ravens win. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Ravens myself. I think we've seen that the Ravens defense, the game-winning drive it could have been for the Cleveland Browns or Sunday, and they're sending 0 blitzes because they know we can get you. You will not have time to pick us apart. Phil Rivers, as we know, has been, for the most part, was excellent all season, but was terrible against them. They're going to blitz him. They're going to not blitz him. They're going to be selective with it. They're going to be clever with it, and they're going to hit him. Now, no quarterbacks like getting hit. If they can, as you say, if they can keep him moving around, throwing it away, scrambling for his life, they win. Anything. I mean, as I say, I think the odds are stacked against LA at the moment, but a less than perfect Philip Rivers game, and they don't have a chance.
Absolutely, Neil. Final game Sunday evening our time. Biggest game, I guess, but also the biggest spread. Eagles at Bears at the moment. Bears favoured by 5.5. Neil, give me what the Eagles have, as the relative Eagles expert here, give me what the Eagles have to do and what the Eagles have to avoid to win the game.
What the Eagles have to do is keep being, again, multiple with what they are doing. They cannot afford to become one-dimensional on offense. It can't just be a Foles for Ertz, Foles for Ertz, Foles for Ertz, Foles for Jeffrey, Foles for Jeffrey. Need to keep everyone involved. That's Dallas Goedert, that's Golden Tate, that's Nelson Aguilar, and it's also the different running backs. It's Sproles, it's Small, it's Adams. Cannot afford to have one part of the offense be shut down. So they need to keep everyone fresh, keep it moving, keep it changing, and keep Chicago guessing. What they cannot do, they can't get into third and longs. Because you go third and long against the Bears, they are pinning their ears back. Mack, Leonard Floyd, Akeem Hicks, they are coming. And we know how much of a ball-hawking secondary this is. You cannot get in situations where you can just allow them to tee off on Nick Foles, especially if he's less than 100%. Need to keep moving the ball, stay ahead of the clock. 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 2s, fine. 3rd and 5, I'll push it. Anything above that, you're playing into Vic Fangio's hands.
For the Bears, I won't do the Eagles. Neil's hit the nails on the head, right? For the Bears, they've got to stay creative on offense. When the Bears have been at their best this season, they have been creative. When they have struggled, well, not struggled, when they have not done as well, they've gone into their shell on offense. They need to stay creative.
Aggressive.
And aggressive, and that's the thing I was about to say next. What they've got to avoid is scoreboard pressure. This is a new team in the playoffs against a veteran team, and that pressure of a home crowd, if you go down 10 points early on, you start forcing things. What will Trubisky do in those situations? We absolutely do not know. They need to avoid those kinds of situations. So for me, they stay creative on offense and avoid that scoreboard pressure, then they'll be okay.
It's just a question that I think, obviously, both these coaches are linked to a common overseer. They're both former Andy Reid offensive coordinators. It's which of these coaches loses their cool, loses the game. Doug Peterson, for the most part, is quite calm and has shown in games this season when the Eagles get behind, he's still calm, still plays his game to an extent. There have been games, obviously, where things have got out of hand. The Saints game, the Buccaneers, the start of the season. But as you say, Matt Nagy's never been in this situation. We know that the Chicago want to run the ball, which is why they persist on rolling out Jordan Howard. You're not running on Philadelphia. Not straight up the middle.
No.
So it's again, it comes down to this. We want Jordan Howard to run straight into that wall, but we're going to toss the ball to Tariq Cohen and get him on the outside. Mix up what you're doing. And also as well, if you don't think the Eagles secondary is that good, take shots. Use Taylor Gabriel, use Allen Robinson. But if you think, they're playing much better than, been playing better the last few weeks, we won't. Well, congratulations. You're not going to get anywhere with Trey Burton. Because the Eagles linebackers against tight ends and safeties, very good. Maybe the speed of Tariq Cohen, but if you're not going to take shots against the cornerbacks, you're not going to win.
Are you going to pick your own team to win the game, Neil?
No.
You're going to get them to cover the spreads? They're going to be tight?
What was the spread again?
5.5.
No.
No? Okay, fair enough.
Eagles are getting blown out by 20.
Neil,
because they shouldn't even be here.
Neil, full on reverse jinx mode, absolutely fantastic. Neil, I applaud that sentiment. The champs are the champs until someone knocks them out, and at the moment, no one has knocked them out. Therefore, I'm going to take the Eagles in a squeaker, but I think that playoff experience for the Super Bowl champions will tell its toll.
Battle tested. I don't know which Eagles player said it, but what was it? We didn't sneak in the back door. We kicked the fucking thing down. It's all very good.
I understand what he's saying, and the Rams' victory was excellent, but no one's handing out lollipops for beating Washington.
No.
So we will see. We shall see, and we will be back next week for a quick recap of that and focus on what is the best weekend of the year, the divisional matchups. So Neil,
and if any jobs have been filled.
Absolutely. So Neil, any final thoughts?
No, it's as you say. It's an exciting week. It's obviously a change of pace if you've gone from watching red zone to just watching a single game. But it's fun because these are players that you maybe don't have a chance to watch in depth anymore. Because we're all red zone oriented, which for our faults, that's what we do. Good weekend, 4 very good games.
Yeah,
I think there would have been 4 good games even if the Steelers had got through or if the Vikings had got through. But I think ultimately the teams playing the best at the moment got in. So big dig, Nick.
Absolutely. I mean the opposite of that. BDN would probably be the quarterback in Minnesota, but we will come to him, I'm sure, in the off season. So on that note,
sure we will.
These top guys are out.